The shattered crown. The unwanted arrangement. Elena stood before the massive oak doors of Ravencrest Palace, her hands trembling despite her attempt to appear calm. At 24 years old, she had built a reputation as one of the kingdom's most talented architects. She had designed libraries, hospitals, and homes for families who dreamed of something beautiful. But now, all of that was being taken away. "Miss Elena Sterling, the prince will see you now," announced the royal attendant, his voice echoing through the marble hallway. Elena took a deep breath and stepped inside. The throne room was magnificent, with golden pillars reaching toward a painted ceiling that depicted ancient battles and victories. But Elena barely noticed the beauty. Her eyes were fixed on the man sitting on the throne. Crown Prince Adrian Blackwood was everything the stories said he would be. Tall, with dark hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to look right through a person. His jaw was set in a hard line, and his expression showed nothing but cold indifference. "So, you are the woman my father chose for me," Adrian said, his voice flat and emotionless. He didn't even stand to greet her. Elena felt anger rise in her chest. She curtsied as protocol demanded, but she kept her chin high. "And you are the man who agreed to this arrangement without ever meeting me, Your Highness." A flicker of surprise crossed Adrian's face, but it disappeared quickly. "I agreed because the kingdom needs this alliance. Your father's shipping company controls half the trade routes in the eastern provinces. This marriage is about power and resources, nothing more." "At least we understand each other," Elena replied, her voice steady despite the pain his words caused. "I didn't want this marriage either. I had plans, dreams, a career I loved. But my father gave me no choice." "Then we are both prisoners of duty," Adrian said, standing now. He walked toward her, his footsteps echoing in the vast room. "The wedding will take place in 1 month. Until then, you will live in the west wing of the palace. You will learn royal protocol, attend social events, and play the part of the happy bride-to-be. Do you understand?" "Perfectly," Elena said through gritted teeth. The cold palace. The west wing of Ravencrest Palace was beautiful but lonely. Elena's chambers were decorated with silk curtains, expensive furniture, and paintings by famous artists. But it felt like a golden cage. Lady Catherine, an elderly woman assigned as Elena's royal instructor, visited every morning to teach her proper etiquette. A princess must walk gracefully, speak softly, and never show too much emotion in public, Lady Catherine explained during their first lesson. Elena tried her best to learn, but her heart wasn't in it. At night, she would stand by her window and look out at the palace gardens, thinking about the life she had lost. Her drawing table sat in the corner of her room, covered with sketches of buildings she would now never create. One evening, 2 weeks after her arrival, Elena was invited to her first royal dinner. The great dining hall was filled with nobles, advisors, and military officials. Prince Adrian sat at the head of the table, barely acknowledging her presence. Elena was seated next to Lord Victor Ashford, the king's chief advisor. He was a man in his 50s with silver hair and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. "Lady Elena, how are you adjusting to palace life?" Lord Victor asked, his voice smooth as honey. "I am learning, Lord Victor," Elena replied carefully. Something about this man made her uncomfortable, though she couldn't say exactly what. "The prince is very fortunate to have you," Lord Victor continued. "Your father's business connections will be invaluable to the crown. I'm sure His Highness appreciates your family's contribution to the kingdom's prosperity." Elena noticed the way Lord Victor emphasized the word contribution, as if she were a business transaction rather than a person. She also noticed that Adrian was watching their conversation from across the table, his expression unreadable. The hidden conspiracy. Late one night, unable to sleep, Elena decided to explore the palace gardens. She put on a simple cloak and slipped out of her chambers. The moon was full, casting silver light over the rose bushes and marble fountains. As she walked along a stone path, Elena heard voices coming from a small garden pavilion. She recognized one voice immediately. It was Lord Victor. The wedding must not happen, Lord Victor was saying to someone Elena couldn't see. Once the prince marries the sterling girl, her father's business empire will strengthen the crown's position. We cannot allow that. Elena's heart began to pound. She moved closer, hiding behind a large hedge. What do you suggest? Asked another voice, rougher than Lord Victor's. An accident, perhaps, Lord Victor replied coldly. Something that looks natural. The girl dies, the wedding is cancelled, and the prince is so grief-stricken that he withdraws from public duties for a time. That gives us the opening we need to convince the king that Adrian is unfit to rule. And then? And then my nephew takes the throne instead. Prince Adrian has always been too strong-willed, too independent. We need a ruler we can control. Elena pressed her hand against her mouth to stop herself from gasping. This was treason. Lord Victor was planning to kill her and overthrow Prince Adrian. She had to get back to her chambers immediately. As she turned to leave, her foot caught on a tree root. She stumbled, making a small sound. What was that? Lord Victor's voice was sharp with suspicion. Probably just an animal, the other man said. But Elena didn't wait to hear more. She ran through the gardens as quietly as she could, her heart racing. When she reached the safety of her room, she locked the door and leaned against it. Breathing hard. What should she do? Who could she trust? If she told Prince Adrian, would he even believe her? He had made it clear that he saw her as nothing more than a political arrangement. The poisoned gift. The next morning, Elena received a beautiful gift basket in her chambers. It was filled with exotic fruits, fine chocolates, and a bottle of wine. The card attached read, "Welcome to the royal family. From Lord Victor Ashford." Elena stared at the basket, remembering the conversation she had overheard. An accident, Lord Victor had said. Something that looks natural. She didn't touch anything in the basket. Instead, she wrapped a piece of chocolate in a cloth and hid it in her drawer. She needed proof, but she also needed to be careful. That afternoon, Lady Catherine brought her small dog to their etiquette lesson. The little white terrier was usually energetic and playful, but today he seemed tired. Snowball has been acting strange all morning, Lady Catherine said with concern. He barely ate his breakfast. An idea formed in Elena's mind. It was risky, but she had to know for certain. Perhaps he's just hot. Would he like some water? I have fresh fruit in my room that might interest him. Lady Catherine smiled. That's very kind of you, dear. Elena brought out one of the pieces of fruit from Lord Victor's basket and offered it to Snowball. The little dog sniffed it, then ate it eagerly. For a few minutes, nothing happened. Elena began to think she had been wrong. But then Snowball started to whimper. He stumbled, his legs shaking. Within moments, he collapsed. Snowball! Lady Catherine screamed, dropping to her knees beside her pet. Elena acted quickly. She had learned about herbs and remedies from her mother, who had been a healer before she died. Don't panic. I think he's been poisoned, but I can help. She grabbed a vial from her jewelry box, one she always kept with her. It contained activated charcoal, something her mother had taught her to carry. For emergencies. She mixed it with water and carefully poured it into the dog's mouth. What are you doing? Lady Catherine cried. Saving his life, Elena said firmly. Trust me. After several tense minutes, Snowball began to breathe normally again. The color returned to his little face, and he opened his eyes. Lady Catherine looked at Elena with shock and gratitude. You saved him. How did you know what to do? My mother was a healer, Elena explained. But Lady Catherine, this wasn't an accident. That fruit was poisoned. Someone is trying to kill me. The first stand. Elena knew she couldn't wait any longer. She had to tell someone about Lord Victor's conspiracy, even if they didn't believe her. But who could she trust in a palace full of strangers? The answer came that evening when she attended another royal function. Elena stood alone on a balcony, watching the nobles dance and laugh inside the ballroom. She felt completely isolated. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else," said a deep voice beside her. Elena turned to see a tall man in military uniform. He had kind brown eyes and an honest face. She recognized him as Marcus Steele, the head of the palace security. "Is it that obvious?" Elena asked with a sad smile. "Only to someone who's paying attention," Marcus replied. "I'm Marcus Steele. I've been watching over the royal family for 10 years now." "Then perhaps you're exactly the person I need to speak with," Elena said quietly. She looked around to make sure no one was listening. "Commander Steele, I need to tell you something important. Something dangerous." Marcus's expression became serious. "Go on." Elena told him everything. The conversation she had overheard in the garden, the poisoned gift basket, what had happened to Lady Catherine's dog. She spoke quickly, afraid that if she stopped, she would lose her courage. When she finished, Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "These are serious accusations," he finally said. "Lord Victor is one of the king's most trusted advisors. Do you have proof?" "The fruit that poisoned the dog. I saved it. And I'm sure there are others involved in this conspiracy. I heard Lord Victor talking to someone, another man, but I didn't see his face." Marcus studied her carefully. "Why are you telling me this? For all you know, I could be working with Lord Victor." "Because when you look at me, you see a person, not a political arrangement," Elena said honestly. "And because I have no one else to trust." Marcus smiled slightly. "You're braver than you realize, Lady Elena. Most people in your position would pretend they heard nothing and hope for the best. But you're willing to fight." He paused. "I believe you. And I'll help you. But we need to be smart about this. Lord Victor is powerful and dangerous. If we make one wrong move, it won't just be your life at risk." "What do we do?" Elena asked. "First, we test that fruit properly. I have a contact, a palace physician who owes me a favor. He'll analyze it quietly. Second, we need to find out who else is involved in this conspiracy. And third," Marcus looked toward the ballroom where Prince Adrian was standing with a group of nobles, "we need to decide when to tell the prince." "He won't believe me," Elena said with certainty. "He's made it clear that he thinks I'm just a merchant's daughter who's been forced upon him." "Then we'll have to change his mind," Marcus replied. "Because like it or not, you're going to be his wife. And right now, you might be the only person standing between him and a traitor's blade. The unexpected ally." Over the next few days, Elena and Marcus worked together in secret. The palace physician confirmed that the fruit was indeed poisoned with nightshade, a deadly plant that would have killed Elena within hours if she had eaten it. "This is professional work," the physician told them quietly. "Whoever prepared this poison knew exactly what they were doing. The amount used would cause death quickly but might be mistaken for a heart problem or sudden illness." Marcus increased security around Elena's chambers, but he did it subtly so as not to alert Lord Victor that they suspected anything. Meanwhile, Elena attended her required social events, playing the role of the nervous bride-to-be while secretly watching and listening. One evening, as Elena was returning to her chambers from a diplomatic dinner, she found Prince Adrian waiting in her sitting room. "Your Highness," Elena said, surprised. "Is something wrong?" Adrian stood by the window, his hands clasped behind his back. He looked tired, Elena noticed, with dark circles under his eyes. "Commander Steele spoke with me today," he said without turning around. "He told me about the poisoned fruit. About what you overheard in the garden." Elena's heart sank. Marcus had promised to wait before telling the prince. "And I suppose you think I'm lying? That I'm making up stories for attention?" Adrian finally turned to face her. His expression was different than usual, less cold, more troubled. "No," he said quietly. "I believe you." Elena was so shocked that she couldn't speak for a moment. I've had my own suspicions about Lord Victor for months now, Adrian continued. He's been pushing for policy changes that would benefit him personally. He's been meeting secretly with members of the Royal Council. But I had no proof, nothing concrete. And he's been with my family since before I was born. My father trusts him completely. So what do we do? Elena asked. Adrian walked toward her, and for the first time since they met, he really looked at her. Not as a political arrangement or a merchant's daughter, but as a person. We work together, he said. I've been unfair to you, Elena. I blamed you for a situation neither of us chose. But you've shown more courage in 2 weeks than most people show in a lifetime. You could have ignored what you heard in the garden, or you could have run away. Instead, you're standing and fighting. Elena felt her throat tighten with emotion. I won't let anyone hurt innocent people if I can prevent it. Not you, not your family, not the kingdom. Even if I didn't want this marriage, I won't stand by and watch good people suffer. Something changed in Adrian's eyes. Respect, perhaps. Or the beginning of something else. Tell me everything again, he said. Every detail you remember. We're going to catch Lord Victor, but we need to be smarter than he is. And we need to work together. For the first time since arriving at Ravencrest Palace, Elena didn't feel alone. As she and Adrian sat together, planning their next move, she realized that maybe, just maybe, this arranged marriage might become something more than a political arrangement. But outside her window, in the shadows of the palace gardens, someone was watching. And they were planning their next move too. Part 2, Ashes of Betrayal. The assassination attempt. The royal banquet was the most important social event of the season. Nobles from across the kingdom had gathered in the palace's grand ballroom to celebrate the upcoming wedding of Prince Adrian and Lady Elena. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, musicians played elegant melodies, and servants moved through the crowd carrying trays of expensive food and wine. Elena wore a deep blue gown that matched Adrian's formal military uniform. They stood together, playing their parts perfectly. To everyone watching, they looked like a couple in love, excited about their future together. No one knew the truth, that they were hunting a traitor. Lord Victor is watching us, Elena whispered to Adrian as they danced. He's standing near the west entrance with 3 men I don't recognize. I see them, Adrian replied quietly. His hand tightened slightly on her waist, not in affection, but in warning. Those men are members of the royal guard, but they're not loyal to me. Marcus identified them last week as being on Lord Victor's private payroll. So, he's making his move tonight, Elena said, her heart beginning to race. It appears so, Adrian agreed. Stay close to me. Marcus has positioned loyal guards throughout the room, but we don't know how many people Victor has corrupted. The dance ended, and Adrian led Elena toward the refreshment table. As they walked, Elena noticed Lord Victor moving through the crowd, speaking quietly to various nobles and officials. He was wearing an expensive black suit with a gold pin on his lapel, the symbol of the king's inner council. Your Highness, Lady Elena, Lord Victor said smoothly as he approached them. What a beautiful couple you make. The kingdom is truly blessed. Thank you, Lord Victor, Adrian replied with a polite smile that didn't reach his eyes. We're grateful for your continued support. Of course, Lord Victor said. He picked up 2 glasses of champagne from a passing servant and offered them to Adrian and Elena. A toast to your future happiness. Elena's hand froze as she reached for the glass. She caught Adrian's eye and saw the same thought reflected there. Another poison attempt? How thoughtful, Adrian said carefully. But I'm afraid, Elena, and I must decline. We've already had quite enough to drink this evening, and we wouldn't want to make fools of ourselves in front of our guests. A flash of annoyance crossed Lord Victor's face, so quick that most people would have missed it. But Elena saw it, and so did Adrian. As you wish, Lord Victor said, setting the glasses back on a tray. Then perhaps you'll join me and several council members in the king's private study in 1 hour? We have important matters to discuss regarding the upcoming trade negotiations with the northern provinces. I'll be there, Adrian said. After Lord Victor walked away, Elena grabbed Adrian's arm. It's a trap. He's going to try to kill you in that meeting. I know, Adrian replied calmly. Which is why we're going to be ready for him. But before they could discuss their plan further, the lights in the ballroom suddenly went out. Women screamed. Men shouted. And in the darkness, Elena heard the sound of steel being drawn from scabbards. Adrian! Elena cried out. Strong arms grabbed her from behind. Elena struggled, kicking and twisting, trying to break free. She heard Adrian shouting orders, heard the clash of swords and the sounds of fighting all around her. Let me go! Elena screamed. Quiet, hissed a rough voice in her ear. Lord Victor wants you alive, but he didn't say you had to be comfortable. The man dragging Elena toward the exit was one of the guards she had seen with Lord Victor earlier. She could see his face now in the moonlight streaming through the tall windows. He had a scar across his left cheek and cold, emotionless eyes. Elena remembered the self-defense lessons her mother had taught her as a child. A woman must know how to protect herself, her mother had said. Because the world isn't always kind to those who can't fight back. Elena stopped struggling suddenly, making herself go limp. The guard, surprised by the sudden weight, loosened his grip slightly. That was all Elena needed. She drove her elbow back hard into his stomach, then stomped on his foot with all her strength. The guard cursed and released her. Elena ran, her heavy gown tangling around her legs. Behind her, she heard the guard chasing after her, shouting for help from the other traitors. The ballroom was chaos. The loyal royal guards were fighting against Lord Victor's men. Nobles were scrambling for the exits, screaming in fear. And somewhere in the darkness, Prince Adrian was fighting for his life. Elena ducked behind a marble pillar, breathing hard. She needed a weapon. Her eyes fell on a decorative sword hanging on the wall, part of the palace's historical collection. It was probably dull and useless for real combat, but it was better than nothing. She grabbed the sword just as the scarred guard found her. Nowhere to run now, little lady, he snarled, drawing his own weapon. I wasn't running, Elena said, raising the sword. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. I was getting ready to fight. The guard laughed. You don't know how to use that. Then you have nothing to worry about, Elena replied. The guard lunged at her. Elena blocked his strike, the impact sending shocks up her arms. She wasn't trained in sword fighting, but she was smart and quick. She used the pillar as cover, making the guard work for every attack. Elena! Marcus appeared from the crowd, his own sword drawn. He engaged the guard immediately, and within seconds, the traitor was disarmed and on the ground. Are you hurt? Marcus asked Elena urgently. I'm fine. Where's Adrian? Fighting Lord Victor's men near the throne room. We need to help him. Now. Together, Elena and Marcus ran through the palace corridors. Bodies of guards, both loyal and traitorous, lay scattered on the marble floors. The coup attempt was in full swing, and the outcome was far from certain. The secret investigation. They found Adrian in the throne room, surrounded by 5 of Lord Victor's best fighters. The prince was holding his own, his sword moving with deadly precision, but he was outnumbered and bleeding from a wound on his shoulder. Marcus immediately joined the fight, evening the odds. Elena, still holding her decorative sword, looked around for another way to help. Her eyes fell on the heavy tapestries hanging on the walls. Acting on instinct, Elena ran to the nearest tapestry and cut it down with her sword. The heavy fabric fell on 2 of the attacking guards, tangling them up and giving Adrian and Marcus the advantage they needed. Within minutes, all 5 traitors were either dead or captured. Adrian leaned against the throne, pressing his hand against his wounded shoulder. His white shirt was stained with blood. You shouldn't be here, Adrian said to Elena, but there was no anger in his voice. Only concern. And miss all the excitement? Elena tried to joke, but her voice was shaking. Where's Lord Victor? He ran when the fighting started, Marcus said bitterly. Coward sent his men to do his dirty work while he escaped. Then we need to find him, Elena said. Before he gets away. Adrian shook his head. It's too dangerous. He could be anywhere in the palace, and he'll have more men with him. We need to regroup, tend to the wounded, and secure the palace before we. There's a secret passage in the West Wing, Elena interrupted. I discovered it last week when I was exploring my chambers. It leads to the old servant quarters, which connect to the palace's delivery entrance. If Lord Victor knows about it, that's how he'll escape. Adrian and Marcus exchanged glances. How do you know about secret passages? Adrian asked. I'm an architect, remember? I notice things like uneven walls and strange air currents. That's how I found the passage. Elena started walking toward the door. We can argue about it, or we can catch a traitor. Your choice. Adrian smiled despite the pain of his wound. Lead the way. They moved through the palace quietly, avoiding the areas where fighting was still ongoing. Elena led them to her chambers and showed them the hidden panel in the wall that opened to reveal a narrow stone passageway. I can't believe I never knew this was here, Adrian muttered as they entered the passage. And I grew up in this palace. That's because you were thinking like a prince, not an architect, Elena said. Architects see buildings as living things with secrets and hidden spaces. We look for the unusual, the unexpected. The passage was dark and dusty, clearly unused for many years. They followed it for several minutes, Marcus leading with a torch he had grabbed from the wall. Finally, they emerged in a section of the palace Elena had never seen before, the old servant quarters, just as she had predicted. And standing there, directing men to carry boxes and documents toward the delivery entrance, was Lord Victor. End of the line, Adrian called out, stepping into the room with his sword raised. Despite his injury, he looked every inch the warrior prince. Lord Victor spun around, his face twisting with rage when he saw them. You should be dead by now, he shouted. All three of you should be dead. Disappointed? Marcus asked sarcastically. Get used to disappointment. It's going to be a common theme in your prison cell. Prison? Lord Victor laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You think you've won? This is just the beginning. I have supporters in every province, allies in every noble house. Even if you arrest me tonight, others will continue my work. Prince Adrian is too idealistic, too soft. He'll ruin this kingdom with his dreams of equality and justice. We need a strong leader, someone willing to make the hard choices. Someone like your nephew? Elena asked, pieces finally clicking into place. That's what this was really about, wasn't it? You want to put your own family on the throne. My nephew would have been a puppet king, Lord Victor admitted proudly. Controllable. Grateful for my guidance. Not like Adrian, who questions everything and refuses to see that power must be maintained through strength and fear. Power maintained through fear isn't power at all, Adrian said quietly. It's tyranny. And I will not let you turn this kingdom into a place where people live in terror. Then you're a fool, Lord Victor spat. And fools don't survive in the real world. He pulled out a small crossbow that had been hidden in his coat and aimed it at Elena. If I can't have the throne, I'll at least have the satisfaction of killing the woman who ruined my plans. Everything seemed to happen in slow motion. Lord Victor's finger tightened on the trigger. Marcus was too far away to intervene. And Adrian was already lunging forward, putting himself between Elena and the arrow. No! Elena screamed. The arrow flew. But it never reached its target. Elena, acting on pure instinct, threw her decorative sword like a spear. It struck Lord Victor's crossbow, knocking it from his hands. The arrow went wide, embedding itself in the wooden wall. Marcus was on Lord Victor in seconds, wrestling him to the ground and binding his hands. The other men who had been helping him fled, but palace guards were already arriving to cut off their escape. It was over. Finally, it was over. The prince's regret. The sun was rising over Ravencrest Palace as the last of the traitors were rounded up and placed in custody. Elena sat in the palace medical room, watching as physicians treated Adrian's shoulder wound. It was deep but not life-threatening, they assured her. He would make a full recovery. "You saved my life," Adrian said quietly when they were finally alone. The physicians had left to attend to other wounded guards, and Marcus was coordinating the cleanup efforts throughout the palace. "Twice. Once when you warned me about the poison, and again when you knocked that crossbow from Victor's hands." "I couldn't let him hurt you," Elena replied simply. "Despite everything, despite the fact that this marriage was forced upon us both, I've come to respect you. Maybe even care about you." Adrian reached out and took her hand. His touch was gentle, uncertain, nothing like the cold, distant prince who had first greeted her a month ago. "I was wrong about you, Elena. From the very first day, I was wrong. I saw you as a burden, a political tool my father was using to strengthen the crown. I never bothered to see the real person. The brilliant, brave, incredibly strong person who was standing right in front of me." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. "Why? Why were you so cold to me?" Adrian sighed, pain crossing his face, not from his physical wound, but from something deeper. 5 years ago, I was in love with a woman named Catherine. She was beautiful, intelligent, everything I thought I wanted. We planned to marry, to build a life together. But then I discovered that she had only been interested in me because of my title. She was using me to gain power and influence. When I confronted her, she laughed in my face and told me that love was a fairy tale. That in our world, everything was about power and position. "So, you decided never to trust anyone again," Elena said softly, understanding flooding through her. "I decided that if my marriage was going to be about politics and alliances, I would treat it that way from the start. No emotions, no vulnerability, no risk of being hurt again." Adrian looked at Elena with regret. "But I hurt you instead. I made you feel unwanted and unwelcome when you deserved so much better. Can you ever forgive me?" Elena was quiet for a long moment. Part of her wanted to stay angry, to protect her heart from more pain. But another part of her, the part that had worked side by side with Adrian to fight Lord Victor, the part that had seen him put himself in danger to protect her, wanted to give him a chance. "I can forgive you," Elena finally said. "But forgiveness doesn't mean we go back to the way things were. If we're going to make this marriage work, it has to be built on honesty and respect. No more cold distance. No more treating each other like strangers. We face things together, as equals." Adrian smiled, a real smile that transformed his entire face. "As equals," he agreed. "I like the sound of that." The advisor's true face. 3 days later, Lord Victor stood before the king in the throne room. King Edmund Blackwood, Adrian's father, looked 10 years older than he had before the coup attempt. The betrayal of his most trusted advisor had shaken him deeply. "Victor, I gave you everything," King Edmund said, his voice heavy with sadness. "I trusted you with my kingdom, my family, my life. And you repaid that trust with treachery and murder. You gave me nothing." Lord Victor shouted, his calm facade finally crumbling. "I served your family for 30 years. I advised your father, then you, working tirelessly to keep this kingdom strong. And what did I get in return? Scraps. Titles without power. Respect without reward. While you and your son lived in luxury, I had to watch as incompetent fools were given positions of authority simply because of their bloodlines. So you decided to take what you thought you deserved," Adrian said coldly. He stood beside his father's throne, his wounded shoulder bandaged but his posture strong. "By murdering innocent people and starting a civil war. I decided to do what was necessary," Lord Victor replied without shame. "This kingdom needs strength, not soft idealism. Your father has grown weak in his old age, and you, Adrian, are even worse. You actually believe that common people deserve the same rights as nobles. That merchants and farmers should have a voice in how they're governed. Such weakness will destroy us. That's not weakness, Elena said, stepping forward. She had been granted permission to attend the trial as a witness and as Adrian's future wife. That's called justice. And it's what makes a kingdom worth protecting. Lord Victor looked at her with contempt. Ah yes, the merchant's daughter. The woman who thinks reading books and drawing pictures makes her the equal of those born to rule. You're even more foolish than the prince. Enough, King Edmund said firmly. Victor, you are found guilty of high treason, conspiracy to commit murder, and attempting to overthrow the crown. The penalty is death, to be carried out at dawn tomorrow. Lord Victor's face went pale, but he didn't beg for mercy. Kill me if you must. But my ideas will survive. There are others who think as I do, others who believe that power belongs to those strong enough to take it. You haven't won, Edmund. You've just delayed the inevitable. Take him away, the king ordered. Guards led Lord Victor from the throne room. As he passed Elena, he leaned close and whispered, You think you found love with the prince? Wait until you learn the truth about your own family. The Sterlings aren't the innocent merchants you believe them to be. Before Elena could respond, the guards pulled Lord Victor away. But his words echoed in her mind long after he was gone. The impossible choice. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She stood by her window, watching the moon shine over the palace gardens, thinking about Lord Victor's final words. What did he mean about her family? What secrets were the Sterlings hiding? A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. Come in, she called. Adrian entered, wearing a simple shirt and trousers instead of his formal attire. He looked younger somehow, more approachable. I saw your light was still on, he said. I thought you might want company. I can't stop thinking about what Lord Victor said, Elena admitted. About my family having secrets. Do you think he was telling the truth? Adrian sat down in one of the chairs by the fireplace and gestured for Elena to join him. I had Marcus investigate your family's history after the trial. What he found was complicated. Elena's heart sank. Tell me. Your father's shipping company didn't just trade in luxury goods and spices, Adrian said gently. 20 years ago, during the border wars, Sterling ships transported weapons and supplies to rebel forces fighting against the crown. Your grandfather was one of the rebellion's main financial supporters. Elena felt like the ground had dropped out from under her. That's impossible. My father always taught me to respect the royal family, to be loyal to the crown. Because the rebellion failed, Adrian explained. When the war ended, many of the rebel leaders were executed. Your grandfather died in the fighting. Your father was only 18 years old at the time. King Edmund, my father, offered him a choice: face execution for his family's crimes or swear absolute loyalty to the crown and use his business to strengthen the kingdom instead of fighting against it. So my father's loyalty was bought through fear, Elena whispered. And my marriage to you was his way of securing our family's position once and for all. Yes, Adrian said honestly. But Elena, your father's choices don't define you. You've proven your own loyalty, your own courage. What your grandfather did 20 years ago has nothing to do with who you are today. Elena stood up and walked back to the window. She felt angry, betrayed, confused. Her entire life had been built on lies. Her father had never told her the truth about their family's history, about why he was so determined to see her married to the crown prince. I don't know who I am anymore, she said quietly. My marriage was a political arrangement to secure my family's safety. My father's business was built on blood money and treason. Everything I thought I knew was a lie. Adrian came to stand beside her. Not everything, he said. Your talent as an architect is real. Your kindness to Lady Catherine and her dog was real. Your courage when you confronted Lord Victor was real. Those things came from you, Elena. Not from your father, not from your family name. From you. But how can I marry you now? Elena asked, tears streaming down her face. Your family and mine were enemies. My grandfather fought to overthrow your grandfather. How can we build a future on that foundation? The same way any couple builds a future, Adrian said, gently wiping away her tears. One day at a time. One choice at a time. Choosing to forgive the past and create something better. And if I can't do that? Elena asked. What if I decide I don't want to be part of this world anymore? What if I choose to walk away from the crown, from you, from all of it? Adrian's face showed pain, but his voice remained steady. Then I'll let you go. I won't force you to stay in a marriage you don't want, no matter what it means for political alliances or family agreements. You deserve to be happy, Elena. Even if that happiness doesn't include me. It was the answer Elena needed to hear. Not possession or control, but freedom. The choice to stay or leave, given freely, without conditions. The heart's confusion. The next morning, Lord Victor was executed for his crimes. Elena didn't attend. Instead, she spent the day in her chambers, thinking about her future and what she truly wanted. She thought about the life she had left behind. Her architectural practice, her independence, her dreams of designing buildings that would stand for centuries. She had loved that life, had been good at it. But she also thought about the past few weeks. The way Adrian had changed from a cold, distant prince to a man who fought beside her and protected her. The way Marcus had believed in her when no one else did. The way the palace staff had begun to accept her not as an outsider, but as one of their own. And she thought about the conversation she had overheard between Lord Victor and his conspirators. The plans they had made to hurt innocent people, to overthrow a good king and replace him with a puppet ruler. If Elena walked away now, who would stand beside Adrian when the next threat came? Who would help him build the better kingdom he dreamed of? That evening, Elena requested an audience with King Edmund. She was led to the king's private study, a comfortable room filled with books and maps. The king looked tired but greeted her warmly. Lady Elena, King Edmund said. Please, sit. I've been hoping we could speak privately. Elena sat down across from the king, her hands folded in her lap. Your Majesty, I need to ask you something. When you offered my father a choice 20 years ago, to swear loyalty or face execution, was it mercy or was it manipulation? King Edmund was quiet for a long moment. Honestly? It was both. I was a young king then, newly crowned, trying to heal a kingdom torn apart by war. I wanted to show mercy to the families of rebels who were just following their consciences. But I also needed to secure loyalty from powerful families like the Sterlings. So yes, I used your father's fear to ensure his cooperation. And my marriage to Adrian? Elena asked. Was that your idea or my father's? Mine, the king admitted. I knew that eventually, the truth about your family's past would come to light. I wanted to make sure that when it did, the Sterlings would be so closely tied to the crown that no one would question your loyalty. It was political strategy, nothing more. Nothing more than forcing two people into a marriage neither of them wanted, Elena said with bitterness. You're right, King Edmund said. And I apologize for that. I was so focused on securing the kingdom's stability that I forgot to consider the happiness of the people involved. I can't change the decisions I made, Elena. But I can offer you the same choice I gave your father 20 years ago. What choice? Elena asked. The choice to walk away, the king said. If you want to end this engagement, I won't stop you. I'll release your father from his oath of loyalty and allow your family to continue their business without interference from the crown. You'll be free to return to your old life, to pursue your career as an architect. No consequences, no punishment. You have my word. Elena stared at the king in shock. You would really let me go? Even though it would weaken the alliance you worked so hard to create? Alliances built on fear and coercion are temporary, King Edmund said wisely. Alliances built on respect and genuine partnership last forever. If you choose to stay, I want it to be because you want to be here, not because you feel trapped. Elena stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see Adrian in the training yard, practicing sword forms with Marcus. His shoulder was healing well, and he moved with the grace of a natural warrior. As she watched, he laughed at something Marcus said, and Elena realized it was the first time she had seen him look truly relaxed. If I stay, Elena said slowly, will I have a voice in how this kingdom is governed? Will my opinions matter, or will I be expected to smile and look pretty while the men make all the decisions? You'll have a voice, King Edmund promised. Adrian has been suggesting reforms for years now, giving more power to local councils, improving trade laws to benefit small merchants, even establishing public schools so that common children can learn to read and write. He needs allies to make those changes happen. Partners who believe in the same vision of the future. And you'll support these reforms? Elena asked, turning to face the king. I'm an old man, Elena. In a few years, I'll pass the crown to Adrian and retire to the countryside. What matters to me now is leaving the kingdom in good hands. Adrian has the heart and the courage to be a great king. But he needs someone beside him who shares his vision. Someone who challenges him when he's wrong and supports him when he's right. King Edmund smiled. I think you might be that person. Elena took a deep breath. I need time to think. Is that acceptable? Take all the time you need, the king said. But Elena? Whatever you decide, thank you for saving my son's life. That's a debt I can never repay. That night, Elena sat at her drawing table for the first time since arriving at the palace. She pulled out her sketches, her plans for buildings she had never built. And slowly, she began to draw something new. Not a house or a library, but a palace. A palace with wide corridors for people in wheelchairs, rooms designed for people who couldn't hear or see, gardens that would be accessible to everyone regardless of age or ability. She drew a palace that represented the future Adrian wanted to build. A future where everyone had value, where power served the people instead of controlling them. As the sun rose over Ravencrest Palace, Elena finally made her decision.